Hello, listeners. I hope you have enjoyed the previous lessons where we have been discussing about the use of each form of the tense. And now we come to the past continuous tense. So far, we have seen in the continuous tense that we have been using the ing form. So let us see how the continuous tense can be used to talk about actions that were happening at a point of time in the past. An interesting point here is that the past continuous tense can be used to denote single actions and also when two actions are taking place in the past. In such situations, we see that the past continuous tense is often paired with the simple past tense. Before we go into the uses of the past continuous tense, let us begin with the structure of the verb. And take a look at what I have written here for you. We have the structure as was or were plus the root verb along with the ing form. And we can also say that was and were belong to the be form, which is added to the root verb which has an ing. As in the examples, was writing, was speaking, were playing, were standing, etc. Now let's use them in full sentences. I was writing a story. They were singing. In these sentences, we see that the action was happening at a point of time in the past. And on the next slide, I have a few more examples for you. Okay, let's continue with our examples. The children were making a lot of noise. The girls were singing a song. The boys were practicing for their match. He was standing at the bus stop. They were waiting for their flight to take off. Now, in all these sentences, we see that we are speaking only about one action that was happening at some point of time in the past. Well, let's go on to the other three examples where you'll be noticing two actions. And I want you to pay special attention to the verb forms or the structure of the verbs that we are using. Okay, let's see the example. While she was cooking, her children watched their favorite program on TV. Now here you notice that there are two actions. While she was cooking, that means somebody was cooking, her children watched their favorite program on TV. So we find that there are two actions here and the two actions were happening. They were continuously happening, but they were happening at some point of time in the past. And the last two examples are also of the same type where you have two actions. So let's go to that. The principal was talking to her parents while she was waiting in the hall. I was washing my clothes when the phone rang. Now, why we are using this combination of tenses, which is also referred to as sequence of tense, will be discussed later on in my lesson. Fine. Now let's move on to the different situations where we can use the past continuous tense. Look at number 1 there for you. To describe parallel actions with an interruption and without an interruption. Please make note of this. Here we will have two actions that need to be combined with the help of a joining word, that is our conjunction. The two commonly used joining words are while and when. In such sentences, we have to use a combination of tenses. That is, the past continuous is paired with the simple past tense. We'll discuss these with the help of many examples on the next slide. Well, let's see an example where we have an interruption. While I was washing the dishes, I heard the doorbell ring. You will notice that there are two actions that were happening at a point of time in the past. And a further analysis of this sentence reveals that in sentence 1, which tells us about washing the dishes, this becomes our earlier action or the first action that was happening in the past. And hearing the doorbell ring is the later or the second action that also happened in the past. Hence, these two actions are joined by the conjunction while. And what are the tenses that we have used here? For the earlier action, we have used the past continuous tense, and for the later action, we have used the simple past tense. Or you may also think of it as for the first action that was happening in the past, we use the past continuous, and for the second action that was also happening in the past, we use the simple past tense. Now let's look at sentence 2. While he was studying, his younger brother was playing with the cat. No interruption is there. Now, why do we say that there was no interruption? Let's look closely at this. He was studying and his younger brother was playing are two different actions that are happening at a point of time in the past, and there is no interruption between the two actions. So these two actions are parallel in the true sense, and therefore we use the past continuous in both the actions, and the joining word is while. To conclude our lesson, we need to remember that such combination of tenses helps you to speak fluently. And we can have two combinations here. One is past continuous along with simple past, which indicates that there is an interruption between the two actions. Another is past continuous along with past continuous again, and there is no interruption. And normally the joining words are used as while or when. However, in traditional grammar, we tend to use when if there is an interruption. So that's a clue to us to understand whether there is an interruption or not. And while if there is no interruption. Take a look at these examples. When she was watering the plants, her friend called her. Now in this sentence, we have two actions joined by the conjunction when. And one action is using the past continuous tense and the other is using the simple past. So we can conclude that maybe there was no interruption between the two actions. Well, let's go to the next example. While he was doing his homework, his sister played with the dog. Once again, we have two actions. One action is he was doing his homework. At the same time, his sister played with the dog. Therefore, there is a very clear indication here that even though we have two actions happening at a point of time in the past, they are not interrupting each other. That means they are parallel actions. Hence, we have a clue here, the word while. So when we read the word while, immediately we can understand that maybe both the actions were happening simultaneously. So as we mentioned at the beginning, past continuous and the simple past are often paired together when we are speaking about actions that had been happening continuously for some time during the past period.